The future doesn't belong to the busiest leader. It belongs to the one who can see it first. Welcome to The Vision Architect, a podcast how bold visions are created, communicated, and turned into reality. I'm your host, Simon Vetter. Welcome to another session of The Vision Architect. I am excited to talk with Danielle Baldwin. Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Simon.
We met recently and I got really inspired by her book, which she gave me an autographed copy. It's called Sparking Greatness: The Power of Inspiration to Lead Boldly and Live Fully. So we'll talk about inspiration. What is it? How do we apply it? How do we create an inspired workplace? Danielle is an author. She's a speaker. She is also chair with Vistage, facilitating executive and CEO circles for the last 8 years, helping founders and business owners kind of lead boldly and live fully. So welcome, Danielle.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Let's start with inspiration. What is it? And how did you got inspired to study inspiration?
It was a total accident. So I was, during the pandemic, doing a one-to-one with one of my members. And everything's chaos and we're all trying to figure things out. And he had just done skip levels with his employees. So the employees had met directly with their supervisors and then they met with Brenton. And they asked them these 3 questions at the end of those meetings. Do you understand your role? Do you know where the company's headed? And how are you feeling? So he's telling me this in a one-to-one and he's like, D, they met with their direct manager and they answered the questions, yes, and motivated. And I was like, well, that's a good sign, right? You want people to be motivated after they meet with their boss. And he's like, well, here's where it gets a little weird. And I was like, okay, I'm down for this. And he said, when I met with them, I asked them the same 3 questions. We had a meeting and to a person, they answered yes, and inspired. And I was like, huh. And he was like, well, why do you think that is? And I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure. And he's like, we throw that word around all the time. What is inspiration anyway? And I was like, I don't know. And then I fell down this rabbit hole. And it's interesting because I feel like inspiration is something that we throw around and something that's important. And from a psychological perspective, it's kind of this needle in a haystack. Mm-hmm. So there are these 2 psychologists, Thrash and Elliott, who have done most of the work about inspiration. And they define it as these 3 things. So they define it as sparked spontaneity, meaning it comes out of nowhere.
So there's a level of surprise.
Yeah. There's this thing about when you're inspired, it's you're in the shower and you're washing your hair and you're doing your thing. And then it's bam, you get this answer you've been waiting for. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the beauty of it, the firefly and also the challenge. It is transcendent. So we have this moment of clarity and we feel really open and this sense of fearlessness. And then we want to go do something. So in psychology, they call it approach motivation. So there's inspired by, you're watching the sunrise, it's really beautiful, and that's it. But if you're inspired to, approach motivation, then maybe you are inspired to get up earlier, or you're inspired to take photographs, or whatever it is. So that is how it's defined.
Good. Wonderful.
Yeah.
In your book, you talk about 3 elements of inspiration. Mm-hmm. Can you give a brief overview? And I want to dive into those a little bit more in detail.
100%. So we know inspiration by definition is fleeting, right? It comes in, we don't really expect it. But there are these 3 states of being that we can cultivate to set the stage for it. And so those are spaciousness, stillness, and self-forgetfulness. And when I was first writing, I thought they were legs of a stool, that they were all equal. And they are in some respects, but they're more of a stair step. If you have spaciousness, it's easier to get stillness. And if you have stillness, it's easier to get self-forgetfulness.
Let's talk about spaciousness. What is it? Is it physically, mentally, emotionally, all the above?
It's all of the above. All of those things at once. Have you ever been to a retreat or like a conference and you notice you're more likely to come back with like a notebook of ideas? Like, does that
I
happen to you?
have. I
Right?
have.
Like, so you're getting spaciousness, you're getting physical spaciousness from your daily life because normally you're at like a retreat center. You're not like at home, right? You're not in your daily routine. It's not happening in your office. You have mental spaciousness because you've given yourself permission to be present in that moment. So you said to your wife, like, hey, I'm going to be at this conference. So she knows, like, maybe, the text messages slow down, your employees or the people that you work with, your clients know that you're away. So you're not getting barraged with emails. So you have this like mental spaciousness. And then emotional kind of follows along because you're in this community with people that are also there for similar reasons. So that is what spaciousness looks like.
How do we expand spaciousness? How do we establish practices to foster spaciousness in our lives?
I think there are a few things that we need to do. I'm sure that you see this. We have very similar clients, and they tend to be really bad at boundaries with their time. And that's like the biggest culprit. So we will talk about like, hey, you need to make time in order to do this. And then I'll follow up. And I'm curious to hear a story from you. But like, and then they'll say, well, I did this. And I was like, well, did you block the time? Well, yeah. Well, did you protect the blocked time? It doesn't really sound like you did. No. So part of it starts with like literally making space for spaciousness and like guarding that boundary.
I have one client, he wants to be more strategic. And he gets pulled into a lot of projects and firefighting and problem solving. And as, okay, to be more strategic, how much time do you spend on strategy? And I said, well, I never schedule it. And it's, well, that's a first action item to start with. And so he started Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like an hour blocking time on strategy and strategic thinking, competitive analysis. And so really long time, forward-looking, long-term planning. And I said, even if you do half of that, that's much better than nothing. To your point, is like I like using the schedule, the calendar, to drive my activities. So what are ways to block time and set boundaries?
If we're talking about it at work, I think it's important just to be like open and honest about it and say, I'm noticing that I'm needing some more time to do strategic work, especially if you're a leader in an organization. And saying, if my door is closed and there's a note on it, then that means like it's closed and there's a note on it. And unless the building is literally on fire, then, but also like self-management, like these things are not good for us from a distraction or time management perspective. So for clients, it is not only like having a good relationship with it, which I would admit to you that I don't have the best one. I'm trying to get better about it. But it's like, what inputs are you taking in on a daily basis? Like, where can you ferret out space that you might not have it? So like, how much time are you spending on social media or gaming, or what like notifications are constantly distracting you? Like, how do we like zip those up?
Minimize distractions and interruptions because they're not usually not productive. And I like the spaciousness. It's also even the physical spaciousness.
Yes.
When I need time to think, I need to change location. For me, I go into nature. I take a walk. I go to Balboa Park. I go into nature. That's where I physically can experience space.
Yeah, I remember when we were chatting, we both have that, like our love of trees and being outside, because there's an element of, there's this thing called the cathedral effect, which is very real in psychology. And your sight lines will determine your cognition and your cognitive load and what you're able to, what your capacity is. And so if we have these higher sight lines, i.e. the sky, we are going to be a better strategic thinker, more open-minded, just broader thinking in general, versus if we're inside and we're needing to get through a spreadsheet or some sort of financial analysis, right? We're going to want to bring that down. But I find whenever I get overwhelmed or I just need time to think, I go outside, no devices. Or if you have that device, it better be on something. You're not listening to a podcast. You're not listening to a book. You're not talking on the phone. You're not like on it. So if you need it for some other reason, that's fine. But like you are just like out there walking to walk. That's it.
Yeah. Let's go to the next one. Stillness. It says being quiet, still, quiet the mind. How does that relate to inspiration?
So inspiration is this tiny voice that comes, like it's this, I would say this like wise voice. And so if our brain isn't still enough, we can't hear it. And I do not necessarily mean physical stillness. Some people I have a member and she loves to drive. She finds great stillness when she is behind the wheel of her car. I have another member who finds great stillness playing the drums. I have another member who loves to cycle and finds great stillness, clomping up Mount Soledad. So stillness is about where like we have these 18 lanes of information going through our head at any given moment. And so what are those activities that you engage in that just like shrink it down to like 2 lanes? So the voice of inspiration has like a space to land. So what would you say there? Like nature? What else do you think for you? How do you find stillness?
Nature. I love mountain biking. And a great way for me is to get on a bike, go into nature, go through a canyon, go up a mountain. And it's also my physical activity that I stay focused. And it's that combination. It's what you said, from 18 lanes, I go to 1 lane.
Yeah. It's really powerful. It's really powerful. There is this book by Doris Kearns Goodwin. So she wrote, I don't know if you've read it. She won the Pulitzer for this book called Team of Rivals, and it's about Lincoln composing his cabinet of all rivals, right? But that's not the book I'm talking about. She wrote this one right before the pandemic, and it was called Leadership in Turbulent Times. And she compared the presidencies of Lincoln, both Roosevelt's and LBJ. Arguably, all 4 of those American presidents had fairly large crises on their hands during the course of their presidency. And one of the things that I love about it is she specifically points to the fact that each one of them got out. Like Teddy Roosevelt's cruising around on his horse in the Badlands, LBJ is at his ranch in Texas, but they understood in order to get the perspective they needed to potentially solve these issues, they needed spaciousness and they needed stillness. Like the solutions they were going to come up with for the Civil War or the Vietnam War or whatever else wasn't going to be locked in the Oval Office in the White House. And I love that. And I think to myself, like, if these guys can do it, I'm sure that we can too.
I have a memory. I was 25. I was a mountain bike tour guide in Greece on the island of Crete. And about month 5 into it, towards the end, I had a big conflict with my manager, and I felt treated badly. And it's just like, I didn't know what to do. He basically want to fire me, and it's over. And then so I was stuck. And I remember I took my bike, I rode up the hill, and I sat on a little mountain overlooking the ocean on the island of Crete. And I just stayed still, and I looked into nature and said, okay, good. How do I gonna approach this? And I stayed in the question without trying to figuring out. And it helped me just to kind of be still and let things sink in. And then eventually the next couple of days, things got figured out.
Isn't that amazing how that happens?
So back to you is, I think it's that two elements that focus. We are so focused on getting things done on projects and moving things forward. At the same time, we need to gain perspective. And so what's your approach? How do we find the right balance or the right integration of those 2 continuums?
I think for me, one of the things that I see in my members, and you probably see in your clients, is like, for the spaciousness and the stillness, I don't want you to do it one weekend once a year, because that's not going to inform your thinking or change your behavior. Or what inspiration has a tendency to do is like change like the what and not the how. Motivation can change the how. Inspiration will change the what very often. And so what I want you to do is I want you to spend like 10 minutes journaling in the morning. And then the next day you go for a walk at lunch. So the discipline of creating the stillness and the spaciousness is what is going to allow that voice to come in more frequently and more easily. Like in writing, as writers, we talk about the muse. And we talk about the fact that the muse shows up when your butt's in the chair. And the more often your butt's in the chair, the more often she's going to come and grace your writing. And if you just say, and I used to coach writers, so I used to hear this all the time. Well, I can only write in like 2-hour blocks. That's bullshit. Like, no, that is not true. You can write, like, there are plenty of people, very famous authors, who wrote books in their car at lunch. So, like, don't tell me you need like an hour-long yoga class for spaciousness or stillness. You don't. Like, sit your butt down, get your mind quiet. I just want you to be in the habit.
Yeah, I think creating the ritual and the practice on a regular basis.
I agree.
Yeah, and then have the discipline to maintain that practice.
Absolutely. I think it's so important. The discipline, I call it flexible discipline because I feel like so often, I know at least for me, I'm always like, well, if I'm going to work out, then I have to work out at 6 a.m. every morning and I have to do this. Like, and that also is not true. So giving yourself the discipline to do it, but also the flexibility to know that it can look different. It can be different activities. It can be at different times. It can be different lengths of time. But it's about like swimming in the cold ocean every day. And it doesn't matter where you swim or how long you swim or what stroke you do. You just got to get in the ocean every day.
Yeah. That voice you mentioned, I call it the intuitive voice, that inner voice.
Yeah.
And I think intuition is when we have to quiet the mind and practice deep listening.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other practices that really work well for you? Just to give the listeners some ideas and some tools.
I think journaling works really well for me. That is a really great way for me to get spacious. Full transparency, I am not like the world's greatest journaler. I know people, I have friends who have like shelves of journals. I do not have that. That is not my jam. I journal when I need to. But it is a really excellent way for me to slow things down and to let things be really quiet and let that voice kind of slide in. The other thing that is really helpful in terms of inspiration is community. So when you're in community, this is where the self-forgetfulness comes in, with like-minded people that either have a similar value or a goal, and you are shifting that spotlight that normally lives on us about like, whatever interior monologue you have going on, like, oh, I've got this dinner tonight, and then I know I need to do this. I need to book that trip to Chicago, blah, 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 blah. And the moments of self-forgetfulness, that spotlight flips out. And all of a sudden, you're focused on something outside of yourself. And it's a really beautiful way to be inspired because you're surrounded by these people that are also inspiring and also want the same things you do. And so that is another really, I mean, it's one of the reasons I love Vistage so much, right? It is a community of very like-minded people who are wanting to grow and make better decisions and like become better people. And like everybody wants to do that. And so you're moving forward, and it's a way that you can so easily be inspired when you're in these rooms of people that do what you do and are struggling with the same things you are, and you kind of come together.
Let's dive into self-forgetfulness. What is it, and how does it apply in a daily life?
It's a kind of a strange one. It's normally the one I get most questions on. People are like, self-forgetfulness, what is that? So it is. It's what I talked about. It's like when we take... So in psychology, they noticed people are more likely to be inspired. There's this big 5 personality trait list, right? And the openness, if you are more open, specifically openness to aesthetics, so music, art, literature, those kind of things. So when we are engaged, whether we're in a museum or we're seeing live music or theater or, for me, Bruce Springsteen shows, like Springsteen people are my people, right? And there are these moments of like great inspiration because we're all inspired by the same artist and we love him and whatever else. But the other thing is community, and that can be a Vistage group, and it can be a 12-step program, and it can be a gardening club, and it can be a Harley club, and it can be a nonprofit board. But it's in these moments of belonging that we can experience greater inspiration because we're surrounded, because you're not I mean, I think you get me on this, Simon. Like, I'm not going to be inspired by necessarily by somebody that runs a marathon because I'm not a runner. So I'm like, hey, pat, good for you. But that's not going to inspire me because that's not a goal for me.
Yeah. Is it the focus away from us towards the outside world?
Mm-hmm. It's just flipping that spotlight out to somebody else or something else, right? It's just not on you and your internal monologue and narrative.
And it's more likely to inspire us when there is a connection or a similar interest or a similar value.
Yeah. So it's like one of the things that I talk to my members about is we talk about the importance of culture and we talk about the importance of vision, which I know is right up your alley. And the reason why vision is so important is if you are hiring for people that don't have the same vision or values, you're never going to be able to inspire them because you're not pointed in the same direction, right? Like y'all are pointing north and this person's kind of pointing west. And so they can be great employees and they can be motivated employees, but it's going to be rare that they're going to be inspired employees because that mountaintop is not something that they have interest in. So hiring with that in mind and incorporating some questions around culture and vision and values is important to ensure that the person that takes that seat is pointed north if you guys are pointed north.
Yeah. The other element is community. We all have community and we all want community and we are human beings who want to be part of community. How do we create more of a community within a workspace and create a space where people feel connected and engaged and together?
I think that's a great question. And I think it's something about open lines of communication. I think it's about slowing down. I think it's about getting to know people on a, maybe it doesn't have to be the depths of your soul, but a deeper basis. I believe in in-person communication. I know we live in a world like we are now where we're doing Zoom and I have members that have their company is all virtual and I appreciate that. But I think one of the things that we're finding that's eroding community or giving us a different sense of it is the online forums, right? Whether it be social media or anything else. And so we're connecting with humans or we're connecting with coworkers, but it isn't the same, I would argue, as like an in-person. So making time, I know that some people hate this, but a hybrid work environment where at least there are some days a week where people are able to connect and kind of create more community. So one of the things I find in the Vistage group, people certainly get breakthroughs through speakers and discussions, but it's also not uncommon for them to get great breakthroughs like on a walk to the restroom at break. So it's like when you're in person, it's those things that you miss.
You sparked an idea that community is give people a voice to be expressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also make sure that voice is getting listened to and valued.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Vistage community does that. Everybody, you have 15, 18 members. Everybody has a voice, can express that. And everybody is at the turn to be listened to.
Absolutely.
I had an experience last week. It was my birthday, and I
Happy
brought
belated.
Thank you, 20 friends together. And most friends, they don't know each other. They come from different parts of my life. Neighbors, and work friends, and colleagues. And then I did an exercise. I said, okay, good. We'll go around. Everybody has a minute or two, 3 questions. What's your name? Where were you born? And what was your nickname when you were about 10 years old? And it sparked all those stories where people connected and laughed and supported each other. And it's that equal distribution. Everybody has a voice and everybody was listened to. And it created this energy in during that evening that was unique and special.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is this exercise I like to do when I am facilitating groups, and I call it 4 corners. And so I'll mark off each corner, 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, whatever, it doesn't matter. And I will have everybody stand up and stand in the center of the room. And then I go back and forth between more personal questions, like, are you dog, cat, all the animals, no animals? Go to your corner and then talk about it. And if you're other, then you get to stay in the middle. And then that's also overlaid with like, how do people best communicate with you? Are you a Slack person? Are you an email person? Are you a please call me person? Are you an in-person person? So you can overlay these types of questions where coworkers are learning fun, silly things like, what's your favorite snack food? But also, how is it best to communicate with me? You know, like what's most important? When am I most productive? Is it early morning? Like when are you going to catch me at my best? So I love exercise. Have you ever read Priya Parker's The Art of Gathering?
I have not.
Oh, she's so good. So she talks a lot about these types of practices to build community, and it doesn't matter, personal, professional. She facilitates all types of groups, and it's a really beautiful book.
That 4-corner exercise, how long is that? And how
it goes as long as you want. It depends on how much time I have on the calendar. If I have kind of a lot of time, then I will do it until you can feel the energy start to like
half an hour, 20 minutes?
Yeah, like 20 minutes. And then if they are like rapid firing going and you kind of have to like do this to time it. And some questions will be really hot and some of them will be like, meow. And then you just move right on to the next one.
Yeah. Any questions that stand out that really get people to turn up the heat in the room?
In 4 corners, it's fairly innocuous. People get very upset about their sports.
Upset or passionate?
Passionate. People get very passionate about the sports. Like, are you a baseball person? Are you a football person? Are you, whatever you are?
I'm a soccer person, so yeah.
Totally, right? I'm a rugby person. Like, okay. So I think people get really most passionate about that one. And they also get passionate about animals. So I think that those are funny. One of the questions sometimes I like to ask if I really want to stir it up is like, what's your unpopular opinion?
Oh.
Like, what is something that people love that you do not like?
Interesting. Okay. Or a pet peeve?
Yeah. So I'll kick that to you. What's something that everybody loves and you're like, that stinks. I hate that thing.
What is that? Again, I don't have much energy left for baseball.
Yeah, you're done.
I mean, I can watch a game, but I get very, very quickly disinterested.
Huh.
What is it for you?
For me, it is Jimmy Buffett. I know people love Jimmy Buffett. I would rather sit in a pot of boiling oil than listen to a Jimmy Buffett song.
Or another one for me is Star Wars.
You don't like Star Wars? And then you get the incredulous. You don't like Star Wars?
It doesn't do anything for me.
Isn't that so? But that's exactly what. And then you get those reactions like, oh, and it sparks really kind of fun discussion.
Yeah. What inspires you?
People like my members inspire me. I think entrepreneurs inspire the crap out of me. Fellow writers really inspire me. Nature is wildly inspiring to me. I get inspired while I'm crafting or outside. When I was doing research on the book and I was reading a bunch of inspiring stories, I found that there are these like 5 elements of inspiring stories that were pretty universal.
Which are?
The acronym is CHART, and it stands for courage, hardship, authenticity, resilience, and transformation. And I think based on the clients you and I work with, I mean, they have that in spades. So it's always so interesting, and we're always so congratulatory of the guy that's ringing the bell at NASDAQ or the stock exchange, right? They get listed for the first time. But that story is 10 times more inspiring if we know that there was hardship underneath it.
Isn't that what a great movie is about?
100%. Hero's journey, man, has chart to the nth degree.
Yeah.
So
Shawshank Redemption has all 5.
My favorite. That movie's fabulous.
How do we bring those elements into a workplace to get people more inspired?
I think it is being really clear. This sounds strange, but it's being really clear with your vision and also being very clear with like the state of the company. Where I see my CEOs struggle the most is with the A of authenticity. Not that they're not authentic people, but the question is always like, how much do I share? And so it is really cool if you can tell the story of like, this is what happened to me. But if you can tell the story of this is what happened to me and this is how it feels and be honest about that, I feel like that shifts the dynamic. So like one of the examples I talk about is like, if anybody's ever like lost a job or been laid off from a job, and you can say, well, I was at this job and then I was laid off. And there's an element of authenticity to that. But if you're like, I was really terrified because I was the sole breadwinner and I wasn't sure how I was going to support my family. That authenticity is much different than, and I think in this day and age, we have a tendency to lean more into like a very manufactured authenticity sometimes.
I call it also business jargon.
Yeah.
People use all those business jargons that are general and it doesn't have an emotional connection to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a study done that about engagement that says that when people use more sensory-rich, emotional language to talk about the future, where they want to go, people are more engaged than when leaders use business jargon. To your point, again, add some emotion to the message that you're conveying. Add some sensory-rich elements to that.
Yeah. I think that's where like, that's what people connect to, right? Like it's that underneath like grounding piece of it that I think is really compelling for people.
Yeah. And I always love a good story. I always say stories sell, facts tell.
It's true. Like that is an adage we have had for many years. And I think it's so true because people see themselves in story. And one of the things about inspiration is inspiration turns something like that you hope and it transmutes hope into faith. And so, and story helps do that because it makes something that you thought might not have been accessible, really accessible. Like for writers, right? There's this panic of like, oh my gosh, I haven't published and I'm insert X amount of years old. And then you read the story about a famous author who was 60 when they published their, right? And they had courage and this hardship of not being published for this long time. And they talk about how much it sucked for how many years, but they were resilient and they kept submitting and they kept submitting and they kept submitting. And then here they are and they've transformed. That story has way more power than being like, well, just keep at it. Like,
Yeah.
Thanks for the platitude.
I have a lot of respect for good writing and good writers, because I have written 2 books and the craft of writing I really appreciate. What is it that you like about writing?
At my smallest atom, I don't even know that's the smallest thing anymore. I think we even go smaller, is the word writer. Oh. So for me, I learned to read when I was like 4, and I've been writing probably since I was like 6 or 7. And there's something about like the rhythm of writing. So I was a full disclosure, I was an econ major until I realized I was actually not that great at that. And a poet came to the school where I went to undergrad. And despite my father's best wishes, I switched to being a creative writing major. So there's something so beautiful in language and so beautiful in the way that it can reframe like over and over. It's like music. You know how like you're changing the notes around and they're the same notes. Nobody came up with new notes, but there's just this beautiful way that somebody can describe a person or a feeling or a setting. And then there's this like, I think really good writing, and it can be nonfiction, fiction. It doesn't matter what it is. It has this like rhythm and beat underneath it that you can almost hear. Oh,
and
I love
it
that.
Sucks you in. It grabs your attention and you stay with it.
Yeah, you do. I love that. Oh.
Inspiration. We use that word a lot. How do we create an inspired environment? And you work in businesses. How do you help your clients and members create more inspiration at work?
I think it is about creating spaciousness at work, being really honest about like like if you guys are going pedal to the metal all the time, you're not allowing any really like when people are in overwhelm or burnout because you're pushing them so hard, it's not going to allow for inspiration. So it's about that. It's about seeing and interacting with your people and seeing what's possible for them. So there's nothing more inspiring for an employee when you, as their boss, can say, this is the version of you I see that's possible. And you might not see it yet, but I do. And I'm going to help you get there. I mean, that is like, we can all remember the mentors who saw something in us that we never saw. So really taking the time to lean into that. And then also leaning into creativity when we're wanting to lean into fact. So there's an element there are a whole different bunch of exercises in the book about this, where I feel like in business especially, we're like, facts win. Well, they don't always win. That's not always true. So you might think like, when people go to sell their business and they're like, I know who's going to buy it. Mm-hmm. And you're like, 90% of the time, that's not true. And I feel like we do that with like facts and figures, like, I'm going to figure this out through a spreadsheet. I know I am. Well, like, are you though?
What are other elements besides facts that make decision-making more effective?
I think following your gut. Like we've got head and heart, right? So your head is good for some stuff and your heart is good for others. And if you can get a balance of that and knowing when to trust your gut. And the other thing that people hate, and I get it, is like sometimes you got to live in the gray. Like things are not black and white. That is not how this world works. And I'm sorry to tell you that. And sometimes you're going to be out in the middle of the ocean treading water and you cannot see shore. And that's going to be okay. Like you're just going to have to make the decision anyway.
Any other things that you have seen in your work that creates more inspiration at work?
One of the things we've been talking a lot about lately in the groups has been creating a culture where it's safe to fail. One of the differences between motivation and inspiration is in inspiration, you have a sense of fearlessness. Like you cannot see the ground if you're flying. And so we've talked a lot about what does it look like to create a culture where it is safe for people to experiment, where it's safe for people to trust their gut, where it's safe for people to maybe make a wrong decision without punishment, without scrutiny, right? Like you don't want them to tank the company. You're going to put some guardrails around that so that happens. But inspiration comes like that feeling of transcendence also is, I think, tied to a sense of freedom. So if we're delegating and we're creating parameters where we're supporting our people and we're trusting them, I feel like that gives people the opportunity to feel inspired because they feel trusted. They feel like they can make whatever they want and they know that they're not going to get like I have one member who shall remain nameless and he has a tendency to kick the dog. So he says, I'm always open for questions. I'm always open. And then an employee will come and he'll tell them all the reasons why they should have thought of it differently. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, my employees won't come to me anymore. I'm like, well, because you kick them. You kick the dog every time. You call the dog and then you kick the dog. So yeah, they're not going to come anymore.
Yeah, I have coached quite a few of those clients. Very smart, always have so 2 cents. Smart. They have always the best ideas, but then they squeeze everybody and don't allow the ideas to flourish among the people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it needs to be this like very open. I mean, there's a time and a place, like financials, right? There's some things that need to be logical and we still need to keep our eye on profitability and revenue and all of those things. But there's also a place for creativity and safety and a place to fail.
Yeah, it's not either or, it's and. How do you integrate different elements into the decision making? Yeah,
for sure.
Good. We kind of come to an end here. Any low-hanging fruits? Any tips, recommendations that you have seen working around sparking inspiration and sparking greatness?
I mean, I think the thing that is the hardest pill to swallow, especially for leaders, is that it's going to be a lot harder to inspire your people if you're not inspired. So you got to take the medicine first. So you can do all of these things and show up in a certain way and create a certain environment. And if you are like Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill every day at work and people can see that and you're not getting a break and you are completely burned out and overwhelmed, it's going to be really difficult for you to be able to show that. So taking the time to do these things for yourself, so you understand how it works for you, and also you can bring more of what works into your own environment, into your own culture, which you've created, I think is important. So the spaciousness, stillness, and self-forgetfulness starting with you is really critical.
Which is the basis of role modeling.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. Go first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spaciousness, stillness, self-forgetfulness. I love that. Where can we find the book?
Book you can find. You can find me at daniellebaldwin.com. You can find the book anywhere. So you can order it from Barnes & Noble or from Amazon, or you can go into your local bookseller and order it. So it is accessible wherever you would want to pick it up.
I am reading it. I get a lot of good tools for myself, for the team. So thank you very much, Danielle, for being on the podcast. Thank you for your insights. It's been a great time. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. I am Simon Vetter, and you have been listening to The Vision Architect. If this episode sparked new ideas, share it with someone you care. Until next time, keep imagining the future you want to create and start building it.